Welcome to the Business Finance Matters podcast. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to tackle some of the topics that we get asked about on a regular basis so you business owners can get a better understanding of what it is that you're probably dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Let's get on with it.
Here we go then, Dave. I'm literally opening the book on this one.
Michael Aspel, good to
We
see you
have
again.
got a book on this. This is an interesting subject. Funding options for startups or newer businesses. Where do we start with that?
Goodness gracious me. Well, first of all, anybody that decides they're going to run their own business, it takes a lot of courage to do that. We're supposed to be a very entrepreneurial nation, and to encourage entrepreneurs, we need to provide them with some information about how they're going to get the funding in place to start that business off, which is hopefully what we're going to try and do in the next 15 minutes.
Well, I think what happens is, how many times have we heard businesses are often started from the kitchen table, but a lot of people perhaps might use their redundancy money, bit of savings. Sometimes people are forced not forced into setting up a business, but circumstances come about that they hadn't planned. I think, hold on a minute, I've been doing this. I know what I'm doing. I was employed doing it. I actually think I can do it better, don't you?
Yeah, okay. So, there's different circumstances. So, for example, I started my own business through default. I lost my job in the banking world, didn't know what I was going to do. And as a result, my business started.
Yeah.
As you said, there are other business owners that start from the kitchen table, whether they're fresh out of university or, just deciding that they want to start a business. They come up with their business plan and they go forward from there.
Yeah.
I would say typically there's two types of new starts. There's the ones, as you mentioned a minute ago, that have already got access to some kind of capital, whether it's their savings, whether it's a pension, whether it's redundancy. And you've got those that haven't necessarily got access to any type of funding. So they've got the business idea.
Yeah.
The next thing they've got to do is find the funding to get it off the ground.
And they're probably going to need funding, particularly if they're manufacturing something or they're creating something slightly different than what you're doing. You're, for the want of a better expression, in a service type role. You don't have raw materials. You don't need to, there's nothing you've got to buy in to make anything or to enhance something. But if you've come up with a great idea to make, I don't know, squirrel jam, off your kitchen table, you're going to need, raw materials.
And squirrels.
So then if you move on from that, you can see the why and how some of these businesses start. There's no equity. They've got nothing. It's all theirs, isn't it? But of course, then the whole risk is theirs as well. So if it doesn't work out, it's they've lost.
Yeah. So shall we start from a typical new start situation? I would say typically new starts or directors or business owners, when they start a business, know that they're going to need some kind of funding.
Yeah.
And there are various pots that funding can come from. And I would say, firstly, your own money.
Yeah.
Or family money.
Yeah.
Is the best type of finance. It tends to be cheap.
Yeah.
If not free. We talked about interest rates in the past. They tend to be very low.
If you've got the right friends, that is.
Yes, definitely. So getting an amount of money together for your own resources is definitely the good way to start.
Yeah.
If you've got that or you haven't got that, where else are businesses or business owners going to get access to that capital?
Yeah.
And there are going to be challenges for
Yeah.
all the reasons. New businesses don't have historical financials. The directors probably don't have necessarily the CV they might have a CV to say I've come from this particular profession, but they haven't got any yet experience of running that business. So there's all, as you can imagine, lots of risks, lots of question marks for a lender that's looking at this new business. So I guess what we need to do is go through some of the options that if you are sat there, you might have a little bit of cash, but you need access to more. Where are you going to go to access that?
And that's interesting because I think most, let's call them kitchen table startups, are funded as in the way that we've been talking about. But there comes a time they want to expand. They want to, I'm not going to say they move from the kitchen to the bedroom, but they might want to move to business premises. They might want to hire staff. They might need to acquire machinery. It's a whole list of things. And so a startup is not just literally that act of today we're starting a business. Startup probably includes a business that may be established 12, 18 months, 2 years, very early stages, been through a few cycles, been through a few VAT quarters maybe, but now the business needs to grow and it needs to expand. So I would imagine that most business owners then go, oh, the bank, I've got a bank account with whoever. But the reality at the moment with banks and new starts, what's your experience of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is going the good old days of the bank manager. They're gone. We all know that. Yes, those days were. Certainly from my experience, if a business was looking to start up, they walk in to see Trevor in the local Barclays bank and sit down with Trevor and say, look, I've got this business idea. Here's my business plan. And that bank manager would ideally come up with something. Typically it'd be an overdraft or some kind of support from the bank. That doesn't exist anymore. There is the British Business Bank, and I think that this is, and the government per se, this is an area which even I, as intermediary, are getting to learn more about. There are options there for business owners. There are startup loans. We spoke earlier about businesses that perhaps have started but still in their infancy. I've just done one actually. I've just gone through a British Business Bank type funding investment lender that's put some money into a business that's only started in July, but they've already started the business in terms of open the doors, but they just need additional capital.
And that's interesting, isn't it? But then how would the business owner that's now saying employing, let's say he's in month 18 or even 2 years old and he needs, I don't know, £50,000 to finance the raw materials for a new contract he's got in for a major customer. How would he or she find the British Business Bank? Because they're not on the high street. They're not.
No,
they're not advertising on TV.
I think once you get to 18 months, there should be enough financial history there for a number of options to be available. My area of focus here is where you're literally starting up, or you're in your infancy. So we haven't yet put any financials in. We haven't got to month 12 when you've done your first 12 months trading. Because there are different stages of that startup, aren't they? And I think from the bottom, where you literally just open your door, where you're going to get that money from. So we spoke about family, spoke about private money.
Yeah.
And then we go upwards a bit. You're trading 3 months. We're going to need some. There might be some. So British Business Bank do some facilities of 25,000, for example, for each director as a personal loan at a very good rate.
But to clarify that again, that's debt finance, isn't it? I mean, there's probably a bit of equity finance as well, isn't there, for the new start? I mean, we hear about this term angel investors, and
this is an area which I was involved with to some degree about 15 years ago. Equity was a type of finance that was quite attractive for lots of reasons, which we haven't got time to go into now. I think that market has changed quite a bit. I always, when I speak to businesses, and there might generally be a good reason to look at some kind of business angel.
Yeah.
But typically, I'd always say, look, the last thing you want to bring in now is an equity partner, if you can avoid it, because you know why. I mean, without using Dragon's Den as the greatest example, but they're going to have their pound of flesh.
Yeah.
And the younger the company is, the weaker they are financially.
Yeah.
The higher the risk. Therefore, that equity partner, understandably, is going to want a fair chunk of the business.
Yeah.
And what you don't want to be doing, certainly in the early stages, is giving away too much equity.
I think you're right. You've got to be very careful. And I think, like with all of this, you've got to take professional advice, haven't you? And debt finance is, I think, and it's a personal view, I think is more suited to that brand new business. I think equity has a role to play, and that can maybe coming in maybe year 2, maybe year 3, to take a small business, a micro business, to the next stage.
Maybe.
Because I think what you should also be looking for, not only are you getting an equity investment, you're getting experience. You're getting people that have got a number of T-shirts already that you may not have as a business owner. And I think that's worth considering at that time. So, look, there's government loans, there's government-backed stuff, there's grants. Talked a little bit there about equity. I mean, what about that really, literally fresh out of the eggshell, been established a week, been established a month, or should they wait to launch their business before they know where their finance is coming from? Or what would you advise someone in that situation?
Again, business planning is essential. Without business planning, then you might as well just forget it, because everyone has an idea, and as far as I'm concerned, you nurture that idea for a period of time. You might, you know, talk to each other about, I've got this idea for a business. So yeah, always look for advice, always look for guidance, friends, family. Obviously, the Guild of Business Finance Professionals, we're all experienced in some way, shape, or form in business.
Yes.
As my son, for example, he runs a little clothing business on the side,
Yeah.
which I quite enjoy. And he talks to me about, I bought it for X, I've sold it for Y, here's my profit.
Yeah.
Whether that will go into anything more from here, I doubt. But the point I'm trying to say is that if you've got a business idea, once you're comfortable, and it does take courage, as I said before. Once you're comfortable, there's a business idea here, and you want to go forward. Well, then you've got to find out got to work out how you're going to capitalize it.
And I think never is you look at good leaders in anything. You look at sport, you look at business, you look at a band. It always amazes me that good leaders seem to surround themselves with good people.
Yeah.
People that they may be able to do the same job, but the people that can perhaps do things that they're not particularly good at. And I think
Absolutely.
that's key here,
Absolutely.
isn't it? You might feel very lonely as a business owner, but there is help
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to go, and play potluck and rely
No.
on the interweb. And,
Yeah. Well,
we've talked about that before, haven't
Yeah.
we? The dangers of that.
Yeah, and if we're honing in on the finance side of things, which is what we are doing, when a business, whether it is new start, whether it has been trading for a short period of time, talk to people like myself.
Yeah.
We have years and years of experience of
Yeah.
working with new businesses or businesses in their infancy. And we are definitely a hub of information that you can, we're not going to charge you for it. Come and talk to us. And as you said to you before, work with people that will give you the confidence and certainly potentially with us, give you an idea of where access to funding could come from.
Now, it's funny you mentioned that word hub. And I know, little secret coming, but one of the guys and girls that was working with us in the Guild at the moment, we're about to introduce what we call a knowledge hub. So we're doing the podcast now to try and educate businesses and make them understand. But we will very shortly, Q1 next year, we will be throwing up a knowledge hub on there that will be filled with some of the stuff that we're talking about and probably a whole load more. The key for me, and I'm reminded this every time we get together, Dave, and I make no secret for it, you need professional guidance on this. Go and speak to people that know what they're talking about. You're not alone. And where do we go for that, David?
As in the Guild of Business Finance Professionals?
Yes.
Well, we've got a website.
Have we?
bfpguild.org.
Oh, hallelujah. We're in. We've achieved it. Guys, it is so important, to remember that there is, grants, as we've said. Family's great, but, might cause some tension, stresses in a way. I suppose that's equity investment, isn't it, in another language? There's all sorts of stuff, crowdfunding,
venture capital, when you get to a certain size. There's a whole plethora.
A plethora, yes, a whole plethora of stuff. And the thing is, again, like we've said on many occasions, it can be very confusing. The benefit that I think the boys and girls have in the Guild to the business user, to the business owner, is not only just that experience, but that vast array of knowledge of what's available. And taking the time to explain the options, and as we keep saying, find the best fit for that particular business opportunity.
And something you mentioned earlier, each business comes in different shapes and sizes.
Of course it does.
Are you in the service sector?
Correct.
Are you in the wholesale sector?
Correct.
I mean, there are so many different marketplaces.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the Guild, I won't ever get bored of reminding people, but there are such a number of people that come from different backgrounds, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's, or have customers that are in that environment. Again, the wealth of experience is there on tap for people just to tune into.
Not every business wants to make squirrel jam. I don't know whether I'd buy squirrel jam. Would you have squirrel jam?
Oh,
I don't know.
Put some nuts in it.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, we're getting close to our 15 minutes. I think the big message from us on this one is there's lots of different options. It's like a lot of things, though, in that business finance sector. Where are they? How do I get hold of them?
Yeah.
How do I know what they are? Who's going to help me? Who's going to give me transparent, honest guidance and advice in these things?
Yeah.
And we'll say it again. Our friends and dear colleagues in the Guild, we've mentioned where you can find them, but I will say it this time, bfpguild.org. And, of course, feedback for us, podcast@bfpguild.org.
Thanks for joining us on this podcast. We hope it was useful. Please share, please subscribe so we can share this content to as many business owners as we possibly can. And if there was anything we haven't covered in this particular episode, then please let us know. Drop us a line. We'll be happy to talk about it in future episodes. Thanks again.